than some of the other ones. And this one here, I know if you've probably seen these, if you watched any of the videos, you make the board, and then you take it over on your bandsaw, and very slowly cut a groove in it, sand them lightly. I did find out that this was all cut with a 3/4 inch bandsaw blade. The thinner, it seemed like it just made more of a mess out of it. I had more work that I had to do. And I got a defect on one I'm going to show you here in a minute. But these strips are around 1/8 of an inch. And I just took the 3/8 inch wide strips that Bay Madison gave us. And believe it or not, I got 3 of them out of there. So, I mean, it's a little, they look like 1/8, but I would think they should, by rights, they should be a little bit less with the allowing the blade and everything else on there. And you glue them up and you simply do it 4 times.
Ron?
Yeah.
When you're putting those strips in, are you getting them warm with moisture just a little bit to help them bend? Or?
The Paduke I had to. I put the Paduke in hot water for about 10 or 15 minutes. Took it out and I just wiped off the excess water, went over to the clamp and clamped it in. I use Type Bond 3 because it's supposed to be waterproof, not just water resistance, which I think Type Bond 2 is water resistance. Type Bond 3 is supposed to be waterproof. So all I used on them was Type Bond 3. But, I mean, the black walnut, the yellow heart, and the cherry that's in here, I didn't have to soak them or nothing, but I found out the hard way on the Paduke when I put it in there and went to clamp it, and you can hear it crack, and it's, you know what happened. You know, you know that it broke at that point. This one here, basically I put it together, and this has got some of the red oil, just stuff you're not supposed to use. I took these circles over on my lathe. Well, actually, first I drilled a hole, and then I went over on the lathe, took the chunk of wood, and I cut it down to what I thought. I used the dividers to try to find it. And then I just held this thing up and I tried to, you know, knock it out and go, okay, I gotta go a little more, take it off. I was telling the guys earlier, it probably took me 10 tries to get these things just so that they were just the way I wanted. And at the end, all you're doing is you're taking sandpaper, you know, and pushing it on there a little bit because I was trying not to get any opening spaces around the outside. And then, of course, the black walnut went in. This is Paduke. That went in second. And then the yellow heart went in third. And if you notice on some of these, I got a real thin one over here coming up. When they're talking about calls, you should use them. I mean, especially on this. Some of these boards, you notice the difference in them. I didn't use a call on this one. And to get the strips down in there, when you turn them around, I run them through my planer and then through my drum sander. And just so that I didn't have any gaps or anything in these strips, this I had to take down quite a bit. If I would have put calls on them, like I did on this one, I would have got it a little bit, it would have been thicker. And I like the thicker ones. I like a little bit more of the weight on them because then they won't move that much for me. So calls, very important.
Ron,
Yes,
how deep did you put those insets in?
3/4 of an inch.
Oh,
Yeah, that's all they are. First I thought, oh, I wonder if I should go through. And I thought, well, let's not push it. You know, let's see if it's going to work.
Now, you said you used a lathe to turn that?
Yeah.
Not everybody here is familiar with how to do that on a lathe. Can you just walk through a step or two on that?
Basically, I glued this to a piece of waste wood. And then I put my faceplate on that waste wood. And you turn it down with the tools. We have a mini lathe here. This would work out great if you wanted to do something like that. You could, you know, make the board, come in, drill the holes, and then turn them down the way you want them. But it's time consuming, but I have a lot of time anyway. This one here, this has got the defect. If you notice on here the gap up on top, Gary and I were talking about this earlier. He said, well, you could put epoxy in there. And you probably could, and it'd be a very inexpensive, very quick way to do it. What I'm going to do, because I don't have epoxy in any other part of the board, I'm gonna put a piece of tracing paper. See, there's a gap down here, if you look at it from the edge. I'm gonna put a piece of tracing paper over the top of this thing, and I'm gonna mark this out. And then I'm gonna take a piece of 1/4-inch plywood, put the tracing paper on there, transfer that onto the plywood, and then I'm gonna cut a template that I can put up here, take a router with a 1/4-inch straight bit, and I'm just gonna cut down, you know, maybe 1/4 or 3/8 of an inch, put it against the template so that it'll ride along there. Basically route out that strip of wood. Then I'm gonna take it over to a bandsaw, cut the rest of it, use a pattern bit, and go back and clean up both sides of this. It's time consuming. I mean, basically maybe it'll take an hour. That's what I'm thinking. You know, you get everything set up, it might take an hour. It's a pain, but I don't wanna, I'm not gonna throw the board away, you know. This, in one of the videos, when the guy goofed up on a board, he turned it into a chaos board, which is all the little squares over there. Believe it or not, he sells those for like 120 bucks, you know, on a goofed up board. But that one there has the state of Wisconsin on it. That's going to be for my son-in-law. I have to blow up the state of Wisconsin. I wanted to take most of the pattern before I do it, but my computer and I are not talking. So for right now, I got to get find a way to do it. Justin, you had a question?
Yeah, I was wondering, why not just take the bandsaw and kind of freesaw cut along there, sand the edges, and glue it back together?
I don't trust myself.
Okay.
You know, I want them nice and clean.
Yeah.
And I'm afraid that I might have sanded a little bit too much down here, and that's why I started it originally.
Okay.
I mean, I only hand sand them, but I'm going like crazy, you know, to try to take off any blade marks. Wally?
Yeah, have you thought about taking some, what wood is that has the gap in it? The walnut or the?
That might be the Brazilian cherry.
Well, have you
Or the
thought about
Padu.
taking sawdust
Yeah.
and mixing it with wood, with the wood glue and then filling it in and then sanding it? How would that look, do you think?
I didn't have a lot of success with that on some of the other ones. You'll see the one up there, that is a maple one. I tried that on a maple. I mean, how tough could it be? It's maple. I don't have to worry about anything else. So I took one of those, you know, almost those little tools. You get them at Harbor Freight. They got an orange handle, but they got a hook on them, a little point. You know, you get 4 to a set. They're real thin. I pushed the glue in there, and I have jars of black walnut, Paduke, yellow heart, purple heart, of the sawdust from the bandsaw that I have. I just hooked the jar underneath the end, and then I caught that stuff. And I put it on top and tried to work it in. And when I went over it with the sander, I thought, that just doesn't, it didn't look right for me. So I ran it through the table saw, cut it out, and redid it.
If you want to do that, and try used coffee grounds. That really works good with glue.
If you mean like for a black walnut?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It even works on light colored woods because it gives a little contrast.
Okay.
Maybe I shouldn't give you my opinion, but stand that board upwards. I think it's too busy from looking at it.
Okay.
Get rid of that strip that you got on the black walnut and just leave it black walnut because I don't know, it's conflicting.
Okay.
I think you got too much going on there.
Okay. I'll have to see ones. Now these boards in themselves, this is actually 3 boards that I made up. One of them was with mostly the maple with a little bit of accent on it. The other one here was just 3/4 inch thick black walnut, and I just glued it together. They originally started out, I'm gonna say 8-9 inches wide like that. And then I watched a video where the guy took the blue painter's tape and he put it down and he put drops of CA glue on top of them. Put this one down and bring the black walnut up on top. Overlap it and then I put weight on there. They don't tell you to let it sit overnight, but I let it, from experience, I let it sit overnight. And then I drew the line that I wanted in there to cut, took it over on a bandsaw, ran it through the bandsaw, and then took the two halves, and it breaks right apart. You know, when you're all done with it, you just break it apart. And then I took the bottom of the one board, the top part here of the black walnut, put them together, and then you do that 2 or 3 times, and that's how I got all of these. Because this is another board compared, you know, from these here. So, and that's how I got the busy pattern that's in there. And I was very surprised. I thought, that's not going to work very well. You know, in the videos,
Ron?
they never have an issue.
Look modern,
Yes.
though.
Okay, when, a tip, guys, when using super glue, what they do is they use the super glue and use the accelerator and sand the right way, because if you leave overnight, it gets that much harder, and then you start sanding more of the wood weight than the super glue. So the trick is to use the accelerator and get it dry and sand it the right way before it has a chance overnight to get super hard.
I don't think it made it through the tape, though. Basically, it's holding the tape together.
Anytime you use.
Oh, in general?
Anytime you use a super glue, if you let it overnight, you're gonna take away more of the wood than the super glue.
Okay.
So you use the celery on the super glue, and before you, and the celery will dry it enough where you sand it in before it can become super hard, and that way you're not taking more wood off than the super glue.
But there is something you need to know. If you use an accelerator,
Yeah.
it becomes a weaker joint than if you just let the CA dry on its own,
Okay.
harden on its own.
Okay.
And the other thing is that sometimes, depending on the glue, the wood that you have, the accelerator will stain the wood.
Yeah, well,
Okay. If it sucks it in.
It just
Okay.
depends on the wood. You have to try it on a scrap piece to see if it'll do the job.
Okay. This is supposed to be a charcuterie board, or as the French call them, charcuterie. That was on top. And then as I brought the router over here, I found out that when you get to like 12:30, just stop, pull it away. Because at 1 o'clock, it eats your wood. You gotta come around the other way. So it broke it off, and the charcuterie boards are not as thick as cutting boards, and basically what they're doing is they use them as serving trays. And the idea behind this one originally was the handle up on top, and on the bottom I was gonna arch this. And so you could, you know, serve cheese or cold cuts or whatever you wanna do. If you Google it, you'd be surprised. Some of these are as big as this desktop here, I mean, the workbench top. They're huge. But that was the idea, didn't work. So now that's firewood. And this is a very thin cutting board. And you saw the strips. The last thing is, I started making a jig for that juice tray thing that, you know, I wanted to put in here. But after destroying that end on that one, I don't know that I even want to play around with it. They're good enough, you know, for vegetables. And this is for putting the feet on. You just basically, well, slip it over and then drill through this actual board, like that, and cover that area. And then you get them all in the same spot every time. This one here, I did put tape on the drill bit so that I wouldn't go through the other side. So, but they're all, and I have them for 1 inch, inch and a half, and 2 inch here, depending on how far I want to back in, because you can't use that on these. With that 45-degree angle, it throws it all off. So now it's no longer just coming off that square. Then I thought I'll put the 2 inch on there and see how it worked, and I didn't like it. So I just laid them down, measured them out, and did that one independently.
Are there special feet for cutting boards like that, or what kind of feet are you using?
I just used rubber feet with a stainless steel screw. Originally, I saw them that you could get them in black or clear. And I wanted to get the clear, but then I should have saved that site, and I didn't, and I couldn't find it again. They come in different diameters. You can get them in 3/4. This is about 1/2 inch, but you can get them bigger if you want. If you get a real beefy board, you might want them bigger. I just wanted them smaller because I thought, well, that's going to be less area that'll pick up any juices or anything like that that they don't have to worry about. And I wanted stainless steel. The thing I liked about these is there is actually a stainless steel washer built into the rubber feet. So that, you know, as I'm screwing them in, it's not pushing on the rubber and then they can't tear it out. It's pushing it on the metal washer and reinforces it by quite a bit.
What are the woods that you used in that board?
Got this one here, it's got the black walnut. I'm gonna say this is Paduke.
Okay.
The maple, the yellow heart, some cherry. The one, that dark one, this one here, I got a chunk of Wangi from upstairs, and I just couldn't believe how nice that was. I love the color on that, so I'm gonna have to go back by Bay Madison and find out. They didn't have Wangi when I was there, because I asked them about it. I like that. I mean, it's nice and dark.
Is that also Purple Heart in that board, on the fourth fifth stripe in?
I don't think so. That's either gonna be Brazilian cherry
Okay.
or Paduke. Or, I got one other one there that I used. Babinga. It could be either one of them. I have to look on the board. I had to mark them with, you know, chalk on the board, because I knew if they got together, I would never remember what the heck they were. I did have some Purple Heart in on some of these. Not gonna be the one I want right away, but I did try some, and Gary and I were talking about, I think it was Gary and I were, about the Purple Heart turning brown? Yeah. It will turn brown over a period of time. I'm hoping that with sealing them, it'll keep it a little bit longer, but time will tell.
But even when I cut it with the helical heads, it still turned brown, and that was nice and sharp.
Yeah,
So I don't know why it did that.
It's the ultraviolet that turns Purple Heart brown. So the best way you can defeat that is to put an anti-ultraviolet sealer on there.
See, and I read the opposite, that the ultraviolet will take your brown Purple Heart and turn it back to purple.
No.
I heard it turned to brown too.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
then I looked on the website and it says when it's exposed, but it didn't say whether that's the oxygen, whether that's the UV.
Yeah.
It is the
It's
UV.
heated, it didn't really say it, just said when it's exposed.
I have a lot of Purple Heart, and I've worked with it. And I tried one time just where I covered it, and I left part of it open by a window. And that did turn brown within a year. And I read that, and the best way you can do it is to put an ultraviolet protector in there. So some of your oils, like teak oil or
Yeah.
whatever, might have kind of a protector in there, but eventually it will still turn brown on you. So the best way to keep your Purple Heart purple is have it in a dark room away from any light source whatsoever. Well, I'm not,
yeah. But, you know, that's like cutting onions. Everybody told me that if you cut an onion underwater, it will make your eyes water. I can't hold my breath that long.
Well, I'm not saying you have to keep it away from light forever, but you don't want to keep, you want to keep it in a darker corner of your room away from the light that's out there, and it will
Yeah.
last for years.
Well,
So,
Ron, most of your water-based varnishes have a UV blocker in it. You get a much duller finish than you do with oil-based, but most of your water-based varnishes say that they have UV blockers in them.
Yeah.
but are they like, say, food safe?
That I don't know.
Okay. I'm just curious. I don't know.
Ron,
Yes?
They say any finished product, if you let it cure enough, it's food safe.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right. I did hear that.
Yeah.
I did hear
You
that.
just gotta let it cure enough. Most of the time, curing is at least a month or 2 months. I say 2 months safe curing.
no, it's-
It works long enough. Yeah.
Okay.
I say if you let it cure for 2 months, you're probably okay.
Okay. Anybody else?
And no general finishes is 30 days.
Well, that's it. That's it for me.
Good job.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.